wondering, has Deep State caught on to the Donald Trump win? And are they kind of saying to themselves, gee, we got to kind of do what we can to make this work? Because I saw this soundbite from John Brennan, former head of the CIA. He was on MSNBC, and I'm like, am I hearing things? He actually sounded somewhat optimistic and positive about the transition team that's coming in the Trump administration. I'm like, whoa. Is that John Brennan? John Brennan, who said all those terrible things and told us that laptop was nothing but Russian misinformation, disinformation. He was part of that cabal to try and make sure that Donald Trump didn't win. And when Donald Trump won, again, why is he sort of going soft on us all of a sudden? I think there might be something here, some backstory. I want to play this for you and see if you have the same reaction as me.
I'm just so struck, Director Brennan, by the timing of this, not only because it happened on Christmas Day, but because we are in what will be a transition period from one presidential administration to another, and that is playing out with issues all across the world. You had John Kirby saying about Vladimir Putin, this was Friday, quote, "This is not a man who anyone should take seriously when it comes to saying he's ready for a negotiated settlement. He has proven quite the contrary in almost every single possible way." That, of course, talking about Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. As someone who has been in these rooms and at these tables, can you sort of pull back the curtain for us on what it looks like when a transition in this highly sensitive information is done properly, and when that handoff is not done with the care and consideration it deserves, what that means for America's safety and security?
Well, I think this transition to the incoming Trump administration is taking place in a more serious and professional fashion than happened in 2016, 2017.
Whoa.
Because you have people like a Marco Rubio, who has been named to be the next Secretary of State, who is well steeped in these issues and also takes them very seriously. And I know that there is engagement between the Biden Department of State and the incoming Trump team. So it's critically important during this period of time, because there are things like this that do happen during this transition, and you want to make sure that the incoming team has as much intelligence and analysis as possible that's available, so that when they take over on day one, that they are fully informed about what the situation is. So I do think that there are some people in the Trump administration that are coming in that really are trying to do everything they can to be as prepared as possible on January 20th.
I mean, am I hearing things? Did he actually say that this transition team is actually not all that bad? Marco Rubio, watch out. This guy kind of likes you. He thinks we've got a good Secretary of State. Oh, my goodness. So it means kind of one of two things. One, they're really, really scared right now because everybody's going to figure out just exactly what went down, and the heads will roll. I mean, John Brennan was one of the chief architects of that letter, the letter that got posted, I believe, in Politico. You remember the guy that we saw earlier in the show that MSNBC said, oh my gosh, you're just doing such important work. The letter from the 51X spooks, it was originally the brainchild of one Antony Blinken, who is now our Secretary of State, and who, by the way, has just been on the wrong side of history, like, for his entire career. I'm not saying he's a dum-dum. I mean, he's got, like, all the degrees in the world and went to all these special schools, blah, blah, blah. But he's, like, always wrong. McCain, actually, back in the year 2000, I've shown you this soundbite a few times. He was on the floor, regardless of what you think about McCain. I'll tell you, he got this one right. He's like, I cannot, in good conscience, allow for this to move forward with Antony Blinken as the Deputy Secretary of State in Obama's administration, because I think he is a danger to American troops. And he's like, I normally believe, elections have consequences, you get who you want, but this guy is a problem. And he was right. So that guy, fast forward that many years to 2020, 20 years later, he's the architect behind the 51X Spooks letter, where they say that is just a bunch of Russian disinformation and misinformation. There is no truth to that Hunter Biden laptop, all while many of them knew that the FBI was actually investigating that very laptop, investigating that very man, one Hunter Biden, and knew that laptop to be authentic. So, Brennan was behind that. Blinken was behind that. Mike Morell was behind that. And you say to yourself, why is Brennan now trying to sound so optimistic on the incoming administration? Maybe because he knows he's in deep, you know what? Could be that. It could just be that, it is a pretty impressive team that's coming in and he wants to give credit where credit's due. But let's just say, I don't think he's the kind of guy who's ever going to give a pass to anybody associated with Trump. So I suspect there's more at play. And I think this is something that we're going to watch, and this is something that is going to develop in time. How many people were deliberately trying to take down Donald Trump? I mean, a lot. I mean, you just look at the array of lawsuits all over the country. And Jack Smith's 2 federal suits. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. And so they were busy doing all that instead of doing the basics, like, informing the American people of the challenges that one Joe Biden, President of the United States, actually did face in the everyday existence he had. I mean, it has come out now that you couldn't get a meeting with the guy. He's supposed to meet with the Treasury Secretary. He wouldn't meet with Yellen. He's supposed to meet with his Secretary of State. He wouldn't meet with his Secretary of State. He's supposed to meet with Mayorkas, his head of Homeland Security. He wouldn't meet with Mayorkas. He wouldn't meet with anyone because he couldn't. Think about that. Again, I go back to the reality that this is the biggest scandal of modern times, the cover-up by the mainstream media. So when they're all going down and they're all going out of business, we can say, good.
One of the things we also do in the year-end correspondence roundtable is dig into what was undercovered or underreported. Jan?
Undercovered, underreported. That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. And yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary for the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. That he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusion.
Yes, it's delusion. I mean, his advisors are they're all nuts, and they're all living on a different planet. They all think there was no inflation. They all think, the world is some kind of panacea, and it's good for them. But you know what? It's not good for anyone else. And that is why he lost. And you can do the postmortem as much as you want. I mean, it's hysterical that they actually still think, or he thinks, he could have won this. No, Joe Biden never could have. I mean, look, he's probably happy because any which way you slice it, he goes down in history as the only guy who beat Trump once. Of course, he needed a full-on lockdown in order to do it. They had to keep you at home and go absentee ballot extravaganza in order to really pull off that win. Because think about it, he couldn't have gone on the campaign trail. He wasn't well enough even then. He sat in his basement and read a teleprompter the entire time. And I kept warning people. I said, make sure that, you're not just voting against someone because you don't like his tweets, and the State Department's muscling their way into Twitter, as they did at the time, to make sure that Donald Trump was off that platform. When he was off other platforms, he had to create his own platform, right? Truth Social. Make sure you're not voting. Make sure you're voting for policy. Because I haven't heard anything that seems like it's going to be decent policy out of Joe Biden. He just keeps sort of trying to go with this nice guy image. Kind of like Kamala was just going with joy. Like, we're going to vote for joy. I'm sorry. I mean, frankly, you don't seem that joyful to me. Honestly, you don't. And second of all, okay, joy is not going to work when people can't afford eggs. People can't afford to take care of their families. I saw another headline today. Credit card debt has grown massively to a level that we actually haven't seen since 2008. So that's scary stuff. And it's going to be tricky for Donald Trump. He's walking into a situation that, honestly, between you and me, is going to be enormously tough. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad Scott Bessett's in there for Treasury Secretary. He's smart. We're going to need some really thoughtful, creative thinking about how we manage this economy. And we got to tame inflation while not putting the economy out. So this is an important time, a crucial time, look, if you're worried about inflation, I still am, frankly. I mean, I do think that it's been game on for so long with this Federal Reserve, and frankly, for the rest of it, right? You had Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer printing money. You had Biden giving out his third stimulus check. As a result of all that money printing, you need to think about what that means for the long-term future. And you want to make sure that your dollars are keeping up with inflation. One way to do that, one of the ways I like, is through diversification into gold. If you're interested in investing in gold, go to this handle right now, trishlovesgold.com. trishlovesgold.com. American Heart for Gold is one of our wonderful sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. And friends of the show can get actually... You can get, I'm just looking at your comments. See, I told you the show was live in real time. You can get up to $15,000 in free silver. Peace of my mind saying, hey, what's that with Trish Loves Gold text in the corner? So again, Trish Loves Gold. You can go to trishlovesgold.com and sign up and get more information, or you can text my name, Trish, to 65543. You see, peace of my mind. We are on the road. I'm live in Switzerland. And I don't have the same graphics package or the same microphone or the same lights or the same anything. But it's okay, right? Because we're here together. And that's what counts. But I do want to make sure that I get a plug-in for our great advertisers on the show. So trishlovesgold.com. Text Trish to 65532. 655, I think it's 65532. We better make sure. We're going to check that and make sure that it's the right number, and then you can call 1-844-495-1115 today, up to $15,000 in free silver. And then the other thing is to go take a look, we're in the other corner now, peace of my mind, on the lower, I guess that would be my right side, your left side. Get Trish's financial research, just $1 a month with code word dollar, DOLLAR, 76research.com today. This is not a sponsor of the show. This is actually my own company that I started with a dear friend, Rob Horton, who's a brilliant stock picker. And we have a lot of really good ideas for you in 2025. The other thing that you can do, if you don't want to pay $1 a month, gosh, guys, you should pay $1 a month, okay? You're going to get really good information. And you know what? If you can swing it, pay the extra $22 a month, because then you can get one of the portfolios, like the basic income builder portfolio, and you get 10 to 15 names in there. 76research.com. Lots of good information in there for you about markets and investing, and names of companies that we feel are good long-term buys in this environment. So 76research.com.